Hello.
Hey, everyone. Welcome to Ask an Agent Anything. As you know, we're always here on Tuesdays. Myself, I am an agent and an investor here with my all-time favorite fellow agent, Renee. How's it going?
I'm great. Look, I decided to take a note from your fashion sensibility. I figured,
I'm
what
glad.
is the West known as? The West, horses, gold, sunshine. Why not? Why not? This one kind of hangs out in the closet, so figured, you know, yours is cooler though.
I'm
You
kind
look
of
cool.
jelly of your beads situation. I feel like the best thing I got going for me is my feathers, and I don't even know what side they're on. Bam.
Oh, I like that. Amazing. Why not? Let's change it up a little bit. I do like hats. Oh my God, the hair. The hair is getting more Diana Ross by the moment, if you remember who that
Oh,
is.
I love it. And you guys, if you're just now joining us, Renee and I show up as is, where is, always on Tuesdays. We really honestly bring everything that's going on in our business, which is why we call this Ask an Agent Anything, is because we want to pull back that curtain. We want to have open, honest conversations about what's going on. And it's important to us that we are bridging the gap between the investor side of the world and the agent side, because honestly, we get further, faster, together. And that's really where Renee and I found our golden juice. And that's one of the reasons we would be having these conversations anyway every week. But we're bringing you into them because we really want to be here to answer questions and see what you guys got going on in your life.
I
Speaking of
know.
which, Renee, you have a
Yeah.
lot going on in your life. You had
Oh,
quite a fun week last week. Do you want to tell
I
the
did.
audience anything about it?
Oh, why not? Right. So you asked me, I'll tell you. So I had a person of interest in town from New York City, and we went to one of, yes, it is that. And it's also that. We ended up celebrating a big birthday and going to honestly one of the most primo restaurants I've ever been at. Actually, chef used to be a neighbor of mine. His girlfriend was a neighbor of mine. He moved in with the girlfriend over a decade ago, and he started a restaurant here in LA called Red Medicine, which is named an album name after one of my favorite punk bands out of DC, because that's where I grew up. That's how he and I connected, because I was the only one ever to say to him, "Oh, that's the name of a Fugazi album." And he went, "How do you know that?" And so then we became fast friends, and that has since closed. But he opened up two other restaurants here in LA, and I have eaten my way through Southern California. I used to date somebody that was a wine rep, so I've eaten my way through Southern California, and I'm telling you, service, presentation. It was definitely smoke on a plate, as I like to call it. It's like art, art places, a 12-course prefix. But oh my God, what an incredible, incredible experience. I'm probably saying this incorrectly because it's such an unusual name, but it's called Metaroa, I think is how you say it. Metaroa here in LA. Oh my gosh. You guys, not inexpensive, but worth every penny, definitely. So that was a birthday celebration. My birthday happens to be New Year's Eve, so everybody's having a party on my birthday. We'll see what happens this year.
I
Anyhow,
One, I'm so glad for you because you took a break at the end of last week, which
good.
honestly, we're both the kind of people who don't do that very often.
Capricorns.
And
Yeah.
I know that Capricorn energy. And I just like, as both a friend and, kind of with our whole community, want to show up and say, go you. I'm glad you carved out that time and then kept the boundaries for it. We
Yeah.
didn't even talk at the end of last week. And I love that you really took that time. And it kind of like loops into our topic today because we're going to be talking about getting out there and being truly in front of people because this is a people's business.
It is a people's business. And, I'm probably going to say something not popular, which I often do, but, we're way past the pandemic. And yet there's these lingering tendrils about actually getting out and being with people out there where people live. They don't live on Zoom. They don't live on the phone. They don't live in text messaging. That's a convenience, right? But it's so important that this real estate business, whether you're working regular retail and or looking to bridge a gap with investors, especially if this is for those agents that are considering, folding this in on a more full-time basis, is how are you going to meet these folks? And yeah, some people are hanging out in Facebook groups, but for the most part, they're at real estate events or REI events, real estate investor events. And it's a total, press the flesh, and you can pick your ones. There are women's only, especially if you live in a bigger area, like I'm in LA, right? So there's a little bit for everybody. But I say go to all of them. Even if you are a woman, sometimes it doesn't feel popular to be the only woman in the room, but it's so important to get out because you never know what you're going to hear and you never know who you're going to meet. It's really those nuggets that you're looking for. So it's building relationships with investors is the topic for today.
I'm excited about this topic because I do think a lot of people come in. Let's just state maybe even from the investment side or are a brand new agent, and they don't really realize how much people work you need to do in this business. They see the numbers, they see the data, they're like, yeah, let's plug in there. And it's really hard to get things to actually look at and to comp and to underwrite if you're not out there in front of the people who actually need the solutions to create that loop. So I'm just excited about where we're gonna really kind of dive into this today. And I want to give a shout out to, I see you, Richard, Robert, and Joel in the chat. We're really glad you guys are here. And there's a few questions. And anytime I see a question pop up, we're basically going to stop our coffee chat and we're going to jump over and make sure that you guys have the info that you need. So I'm going to pull up this question right here, which I think is really good.
Ooh, this is so relevant for today with the National Association of Realtors and what's going on. So let's read it. Can you elaborate? Richard says, can you elaborate on the buyer broker agreement? Had an agent tell me it needs to be in place before we work together in case she gets audited. Wow. Your thoughts on that? I don't think this is a national conversation. This is not just California or Colorado, which for those of you who are tuning in, my market is all of California. I live in SoCal, work all of California, been licensed for over 18 years. And then Coriana's in Colorado, and you've been licensed now for 3 years. Is that right?
Yes, 3 years licensed, 5 years working as an investor. So I got in, I through the back door.
Uh-oh, that sounds like a story within a story. Can you elaborate? You just
well, I mean, I first learned about how to invest in real estate through the wholesale model. And then I was like, wait a second, I need to learn more as to how these contracts are working, what's going on. And that's when I got, honestly, probably distracted into my license because it was something I could learn and work on and do without actually doing the work of going out to see people in person and be out in the real world. So because I stutter stepped on that, I went and I got my license. And that's where I learned that it's a really happy little rainbow between both worlds if you're functioning with the synergy of collaboration over competition. So that's what I mean by backdoor, nothing dirty.
Fair enough. So let's get back to the topic at hand. So to elaborate on the buyer broker agreement, your thoughts about this and sort of where it's going.
I'm going to just speak in the present because many different iterations of Corianne along the journey I just described has different opinions about this. But given the present, the National Association of Realtors going through this lawsuit, and there is a date officially, August 17th, where the switch flips and there's no longer going to be allowed to be buyer compensation on the MLS. And that's like a whole nother kit and caboodle and conversation as to how we could get further as to what that means. But what does it mean for a buyer's agreement with an investor? Originally, investors would approach and go, I work with so many agents out here, I can't have a buyer's broker agreement with you. And I stood by that. I functioned by that. Got my license, continued to work that way. Now I work completely differently. I believe that the buyer's broker's agreement is not a hindrance to the investor, and it's just a benefit and a kindness to the agent and their paperwork and the hoops they have to jump through. Here's the caveat that's so important. I'm honest. First and foremost, I work with a bunch of other agents here. I'm under other buyer broker agreements. I need you to put in your buyer broker agreement a statement, and I've got it copy pasted over, but it basically all it needs to say is, I work with other people. This is a first come, first serve basis. If for any reason I've received your address from a different agent, you'll be notified immediately. That's it.
Wow, that's powerful. I don't even do that. I just learned something today. So see, guys, you're always listening for the nuggets, right? That's powerful. And so it seems to, because, Richard asked a really poignant question, and some people in the audience, we're agents, right? So we sometimes take it for granted, the step-by-step. So you've now in being in communication with the agent, they're wanting to send you an address and they state, hey, I want you to sign this buyer broker agreement. And you go, I don't have a problem with that. And you're going to put this clause in there. But remember, you left out a little something, right? Because it's not just the buyer broker agreement. This is where I think Richard might be getting stuck a little bit. You do not want to have a blanketed buyer broker agreement with that agent. You want to have it per address. And so if you've never actually seen a buyer broker agreement, there is a space on there that says for the specific address. And so it's okay. If they, you know, in all fairness, if they brought you 123 Main Street, then they should get paid for 123 Main Street. And, you know, amongst the agents, we really do a lot of handshaking, so to speak, you know, like almost 1950s, like I'll scratch your back, you scratch mine. But within the agent and investor world, which is why, you know, Corey and I started this, it's a little bit of oil and water, and we don't trust each other. Particularly the agents don't really trust the investors. There's no recourse. There's zero recourse. You investor could go around my agent back, go right to 123 Main Street and knock on the door and go right to the seller, and I'm never going to get paid. And I basically just gave you free information. So the buyer broker agreement is really in place to have some kind of recourse for the agent investor relationship. Now, this is not a negative, but just remember, the investor is like the Wild West of real estate. You don't have brokers, essentially, right? I'm being general. You don't have brokers. You don't have an MLS. You don't have a board. If somebody tried to do something, quote unquote, to you, there's no recourse. You would just, excuse my French, screw the agent, and then there's nowhere for the agent to go. So think of it from the agent's side. They're not trying to throw you under the bus. They're just trying to protect themselves. We don't have buyer broker agreements amongst each other because we have referral agreements. That's what we use. So there is something in writing to say, hey, agent, I'm going to pay you. And hey, investor, agent, I'm going to get paid.
Yep.
That makes sense.
And it's changing for agents too. So to some extent, that's probably why you're feeling that, like, oh, in case she gets audited, like, which is a little extreme, right? And no hate to any agents out there, but they are shifting so much that you, in a lot of ways, coming from an investment standpoint, and I know Richard, so I know he's coming from that angle, you want to kind of guide them through what you need that to look like. So it either needs to have the address, just like Renee says, or it needs to have that clause that clearly states when or when you're not working with them. Here's the thing that's also changed. And I've noticed, at least in my local market, that a lot of agents don't know how to navigate this yet. But in the document, and I've always done this in my exclusive agreements with my traditional buyers, I'm always going to say the seller may pay, you are obligated to pay. Most do not do this. Most have always checked seller broker will pay. And then they tell their buyers, hey, isn't this awesome? I'm basically working for you for free. And they can't use the free word, by the way. Don't do it. But that's always been where they've been, like, kind of coming from. Well, now the shift is you actually have to have the conversation, bring a value proposition to your buyers as to what work you're out there actually doing that would make me want to sign this, and then state, here's what you might have to pay me for that work. I'm also going to specifically ask the seller for it beforehand. And so watch your clauses, Richard, see what's going on in regards to that. But what's most important here is that, you know, honestly, to me, is that you're working with an agent that's actually going to be doing the work. I would directly ask, do you call sellers? And if they go, oh, no, then honestly, I'd be like, then I'm not signing a buyer's broker agreement with you. You're not doing enough work.
Yeah. And don't be scared of signing stuff, guys. I mean, obviously you're signing something, you want to read it. There typically are state mandated disclosures, and they're not scary. They're actually written by lawyers on the board, you know, in my case, California Association of Realtors. So, you know, fill in the blank. Association of Realtors is typically every other state. And it's really just meant to be one of my favorite personal values, which is clear, concise communication. That's really what you're after. So when you see things like this coming from an agent, I kind of feel a little bit like in some of the Facebook groups. I know in our group, Astro Flipping, especially if you're new or you're young and new, and maybe, you just haven't been around the block enough times, doesn't mean you're unintelligent. It's just you're young. And maybe you haven't seen a lot of disclosures in your life. Well, this is the way of the world. Unfortunately, we do not live in a 1950s world where people kind of handshake each other. And these disclosures are meant to be the neutral third party, if you will, amongst what we have verbalized first. And now we're just going to put it on paper. So there's clear, concise communication. So just from a psychological standpoint, if an agent ever sort of, puts these things in front of you, be the better person, as an investor, and say, hey, no problem. I'm going to take the time. Let me read. Let me clarify. Let's just have a conversation. Other than maybe sometimes if you hear the agent might have a tone in their voice, which sounds like an attitude, they're probably just exhausted. Remember, there's a lot more investors out there. You don't need your license to do this. You can literally become an investor today and go on YouTube University. And that's what's happening. And most of their phone numbers are being published. So anybody and everybody is calling the agent. And I'll speak for myself because I'm on the other side of this. Even though Corianne and I are bridging gaps, remember, I'm a licensed agent. So I'm getting all these calls from other investors. And I got to tell you, it's kind of a sad reality out there. So be better, do better. It's moving forward into a skills-based business that really you want to treat as a craft, not as a transaction. So go be better and do better within, the craft of real estate, and it will pay you back along with the agents.
Amen to that. And I just want to touch, I see a few other questions I'll bring up as well, but just to kind of continue in the lineage of Richard's story, what about being audited? Other agents write at the time of contract if it's property specific. I personally, and Renee, correct me if you see this as being wrong, am like, this is just panic from the agent in regards to potentially being audited because, for example, she doesn't know what the future is going to look like. And what's being changed in all these laws and rules is about this buyer's agreement. It all has to do with this. So she's just going, hey, just in case for any reason they want to see my paperwork in 2, 3, by the way, we have to keep paperwork for 4 years. So in general, she's like, I need to cover my butt for half a decade. And I kind of understand that. I'm like, all right, cover your butt, but you don't even know how to cover your butt yet because we don't have those laws and restrictions and regulations. So you're kind of just blanketing, making sure that Richard does some extra paperwork. And for you, it should be a quick read. You, especially as a cash buyer, often should know what this buyer's agreement looks like and know what you need out of it. So click, click, click. Okay, good. Sign. And then I keep those in a folder that's my buyer broker agreements and shows me what date they'll expire as the saved file name. So there you go.
Yeah, that's it. It's really, and neither Corianne and I are stepping over because we have experience, but it really isn't a big deal. Again, back to clear, concise communication, do exactly what Corianne said, save it. The agent does have some kind of transaction coordinator or should, per the broker, to where everything is really online at this point. So it's not even a file. It's not a digital file. But it's just another thing that goes in there. And you guys see it in the real world. I mean, look at lawsuits. I'm always dumbfounded, like somebody's being sued from 2016. I can't remember what I did yesterday. So, you're right that this agent, it sounds, that word, I've never heard that word, audited. So it almost sounds like the broker, like the brokerage, let's call it Keller Williams, for the sake of the conversation, right? That's a broker. And then usually we're sales associates underneath the brokerage, unless you have your broker's license. And so it sounds like the broker is sort of like, oh, if we get audited or whatever. So they're kind of putting the fear of God into the agent. Just have some grace, you guys, this year. It's a wacky year. It's a National Association of Realtors, don't quote me on this, I think they're almost 100 years old or just about that. And this is the first time ever in 100 years in their existence that something like this has happened. So it's a big, big deal. And a lot of agents are kind of riding the coattails of easy peasy, whatever it says in the MLS. And now they're going to actually have to call, the listing agent to ask, frankly, for their paycheck. Whereas before it was just defaulted. So, have some grace for where all the agents are in this process. Anyhow.
Thank you for saying that. And to our agents that are here, give yourself some grace too. And just roll with the punches in the flow. I think from the investor side, we're a little bit more used to asking for a check, especially from another side or somebody that we're collaborating with in that way. And agents are now having to learn that. But I'm shooketh Oh my goodness. I'm shook at that. How many agents are leaving the industry over this?
You know what? This is, again, unpopular, but it's about time. I was actually having a conversation with a senior agent by age and also by experience, because all the senior agents are older, because they will tell you, I've been in this business for 40 years. Well, heck, of 40 years, they started when they were 20 or 30. So they're at least in their 60s or 70s. They've been around the block as a human being. They've been around the block as a realtor. And I've talked about 3 of these people, sassy. They happen to be all women, and they're just sassy as all get out, and they will take no prisoners. And every single one of them involuntarily have basically said to me, this is a long time coming, because, it's like show up or get out. This really is a skills-based business. The agents are mostly in it for longevity. I think the investors are really in it. It's very transactional. So now that's the oil and water. Right. But you're going to get, I believe, and I hope that you're going to get a better quality of agent moving forward, because there's very little room. The margin for error has gotten smaller and smaller. So, those of people that try, get their license, get in, kick the can, don't get coaching, don't practice skills and scripts, just don't have their systems in order. I mean, you're running a business, and it's been like you can do it on a whim for so many years. And I just believe that those days are about to be over. It might take a couple years, to filter down, but it's about to be over. So you're going to get a better caliber of agent, I believe. That's the good news.
100%, because it is a service industry. And I think a lot of people don't see it as that. They kind of see it as like a marketing, as long as I'm likable in my church, then I'm going to get deals. And it doesn't really work that way. It is absolutely an entrepreneurial, independent contractor, service-based business. And that's work, like absolute work. And I think it's so good to be reminded that if you are sticking this out, if you are going with the flow, if you are taking the punches, this is our moment to shine. It's kind of circling us back to real live events, because we both have been to and have some coming up. And I was recently getting some CE credits, my continued education credits. And I went to a live event for 2 hours with an attorney to work on this. And I was there with a ton of my local realtors. Love them all. They are fabulous. And also a few of them were like, you know what? We're probably just going to write out our listings and then just stop this and kind of retire, like soft retire, as they call it. And as a moment, as somebody who's in their midlife, if you will, and working towards growing,
Hit home.
Okay, I'm young. I'll take it. I'm young. I'm growing my business. I propositioned them immediately. I was like, well, great. If you need somebody to take care of future business that might fall into your lap, I give great referral fees. And guess what? If you don't have your license anymore, then I give great marketing fees. I was like, just
guys, take note. Yeah.
Play direct from the playbook. We're always opening it up here. But I'm letting all my local realtors know that if they don't want to have to figure out this change, then I'll make sure that they get paid for the value they do bring.
That's amazing. It's kind of the gift that keeps giving. It's almost like a affiliate / referral. I know this is all semantics, but like the kids would talk about that, right? How can you make money without actually working? Well, anybody who's on here or watches this in the future, if you're an agent that fits this, category, I mean, it might be bittersweet to you because you just don't have it in you anymore. We've all been there. It doesn't matter if it's real estate or another job you've had, or maybe even a sport that you play. Like, you just feel it within you. You're done. You're done. I call it being complete. And there is something bittersweet about that, because I think that we all, kind of have memories, and we were hoping for something different, or we had different expectations when we got into stuff, and, leave gracefully. And at the same time, it doesn't have to be, oh my gosh, I put in X number of years, 5 years, 10 years, 25 years. And now I'm just going to close the door on it. Because in a way, that's the way the industry's set up. I mean, there's no one that's going to catch you unless you set it up. Do you have a team? Do you have an exit strategy? Do you have a referral partner? And start to do some interviewing like that. I mean, obviously, Corianne, you just waltzed up to these folks, but you have a wonderful presence. You're very approachable. I mean, if I were in that category, I'd be just looking at your essence and saying like, there's something about this girl. And so maybe have your eyes wide open. If you're a little bit there, you're a little bit like, real estate just isn't for me anymore. I just don't have it in me. I don't have the chutzpah and the wherewithal to make it across this new hump, right, of this NAR stuff, maybe start opening your eyes and look around and find someone like myself or Corianne within your market that is straddling both sides. So you're not leaving any stone unturned. You're working with investors, you're working with retail. Just something to consider.
And since we're talking about it, I know a great one in Missouri. Boom. He's right there. He's also one of my faves. And I know a great one in, Chabrel. I'm pretty sure she's in New Jersey. She might also be
New Jersey, New York. Yeah.
Okay.
Wait, I don't know if that's her market though, but she lives there. Yeah. No, I mean, she's an agent there, but I don't know if she's doing investing there. Yeah.
And I'm pretty sure she's licensed. So she's also a unicorn like us.
Yep.
Hi, back to you. I'm glad you're here. Let's jump to Joel's question. And I'm going to be reading it live with everybody while I sip my coffee.
I like that name, Joel.
He's a cool dude too. Cool cat.
Nice. All right. You want me to read it?
Yes, please.
So out of curiosity, how did some agents help you with your wholesale business? If I want to use agents to dispo my deals, how much to pay them, or also to dispo other investors' deals? Whoo! That's like three questions in the question. I love it. Go on, Corianne. I've got my version of it.
One of my soapboxes. Let's pull it over here.
Hold on, my sleeves are pulled up. Okay, got it. Now I'm leaning forward. Yes.
Oh, no, I'm glad you're asking this question because I think for a lot of seasoned wholesalers, they don't know how to make this jump into really partnering with agents on both sides of the deal because honestly, many people don't make this jump because they're not being honest about the full transparency of how they move within their business. And they don't like telling agents, hey, I might not close on this deal. I might assign it. But I can tell you first and foremost that if you are being honest and you're saying, hey, I might use assignability within any of my contracts, then when you come back to that agent later and say, hey, I'm having a hard time getting this one off my books, I need your support and help, their eyebrows don't raise because you've already been so honest and clear from the get-go. So I think that's a big part of it. The second part is that you want an agent that you really trust for this. I only work on the dispo end with agents that I know have got my back all the time. And that people that I do the same, right? So you want that reciprocal communication and understanding as to how you work and how they work before you even step into, let's work on the dispositions and sales side together. If you have that, if you've got one or two agents that slot into that and you're like, I believe in this person, I want to kind of communicate better, then honestly, I'd have that conversation. I'm like, hey, this is a deal that I thought I was going to take down. I no longer want to flip it. The numbers aren't shaking for me, but I think they would work for somebody else. Do you have an investor that you can put this in front of? And then I'm honest with them. Here's what I can pay you if, for example, your buyer completes on the contract.
Put in the chat if that answered your question, Joel. I also want to put in like some little side note here for the entire audience, right? So as an agent, how I work this angle, so it's just a sidestep from the actual question. By the way, dispo is short for disposition because there's a lot of lingo on the investor, specifically the wholesaler side. So I know when I came into Astro Flipping, which is the organization that Corianne and I are in, and it's a wonderful community. We'll say a little bit more about it at the end. I actually didn't know what acquisition and disposition was. It's not out of ignorance. It's just wasn't my topic of conversation. Like, wait, what? I had to jump on board. Buy box is something. Another one you'll hear them throw around, buy box. I was like, whoa, what is that? I don't know. So disposition is kind of like buyer seller. So because in wholesale, you're flipping a contract. So you're acquiring that contract. That's the acquisition side of things, if you will, call it the seller. And then the disposition side is like, I have a contract in hand with a house that's under contract, literally on a piece of paper, and I'm not buying it. So I'm not technically the buyer, but I'm the middleman. I'm the wholesaler. I know a buyer that's going to buy it. So I'm going to take that contract that is assignable and I'm going to assign it to the buyer, if you will. And so that I'm distributing it. That's the dispo. So it's acquisition, disposition. Hopefully that also helped for the audience. Also put it in the comments if you don't know, we can elaborate a little bit more. But here's the way I do it as the actual agent. So if I have a buyer, which I often do, right? So if I have a buyer and another agent calls me, because remember, I'm an agent, I'm not per se a wholesaler. I'm an agent who wholesales, but I'm not just a wholesaler, I'm a licensed agent. So I know a lot of agents. So an agent might call me and say, hey, Renee, there is a person in my office that has an off-market property that is fitting exactly what you're looking for, a bit of a fixer. It's going to have some meat on the bone, right? And I go, ooh, I get very excited. So, but they're in touch with the listing agent. The listing agent in their office is their buddy. And that's how they found out about this off-market opportunity. So then there's this dilemma that agent, who's the buyer's agent, and I'm a buyer's agent, if you will, because I have the buyer, that agent says, Renee, how am I going to get paid? I said, no problem. There's 3 ways to do it. One is you can wholesale it to me and I'll wholesale it to my buyer, right? Or you can step aside. You're going to have to trust me, right? But you can step aside and I'll just use the commission referral agreement, which is actually a disclosure that all agents have access to. And I will pay you through escrow as a referral. We will decide on what that amount is, but that will be a referral. Or third is I say, hey, buyer's agent that brought me the deal, you and I can split the commission, 50-50, we'll call it, split the commission, and we're both on the residential purchase agreement, which is technically what it's called before all signatures are on something, then it's called the contract. Okay, so we call it the RPA, the residential purchase agreement. That's 3 ways to do it. So for all of you out there that are agents and you're kind of scratching your head and you're a little bit spooked about how you kind of play middleman to all this with your other agent, because you need to be licensed in order to do this. So Joel's question was more about being the investor. I'm speaking more to the agent to agent on how to do this. So that's the answer on how it works. And it's super simple. She's back. I'm sure people's heads are spinning. Corianne, help me out here. Was that confusing?
No, and thank you. I had to text an agent for a showing that I've got going on in one of my deals right now. But I love this. And honestly, I think we need to have a whole nother episode where we're breaking down the different propositions that you can give agents, because that one, and we talked on the phone a little earlier where you gave me a few different ones. And I was like, well, hot damn, there's a lot of different opportunities here. And I think both agents and investors alike need to kind of have this lingo, because there are multiple different ways that we can potentially work together and put money in each other's pockets. And so I think in a lot of ways, that's where you want to start. Joelle, like go to direct to your agent and be like, hey, I know there are more ways that I can make you money and you can make me money. Let's explore those together. Oh, by the way, I happen to have this deal here. I'm curious, do you have any buyers for it? I know that might kind of blow their mind if that's the first time they've ever heard it. But honestly, it's almost one of the quickest ways to a check is that they already have a connection to the buyer and you already have the contract. And if you complete just one of those with an agent, it's going to blow their mind and they're going to absolutely love working with you onward and upward, basically.
You know, and this is, I know there's a lot to digest here, and these are always recorded. And of course, you can always reach out to Corianne or myself individually, and I'm happy to have that conversation about how I'm creating this. And I essentially made this up. I mean, the only way out is through in life, right? Like you just got to get on the court and sometimes just go, oh, wait, what if I do this or what if I do that? And so this is really live what it looks like as a skills-based business. There's a lot of different skills that you're doing. You know, it's how to talk to people, the cadence, the tonality. That's one element. This is how to think out of the box. And this is not a brag. I'm sure Corianne will be right there behind me, but I have a quality problem these days. I don't have a problem having opportunity come in my direction. If you talk to 99% of the agents out there, they're like, oh my gosh, there's not enough listings. We're in a housing crisis. The sky is falling. But I have more people sending me opportunities that I'm playing matchmaker. I'm trying to figure out how to put these deals together, right? Because I may not, how I made up that whole scenario that I just described is I didn't necessarily have enough acquisitions at a certain point, but I had enough buyers, right? So I'm like, well, how do I do this? And I had to think. So guys, while you're out there, have fun with this, and be creative, and then just try it. I mean, I get it. Agents are just kind of grumpy a lot of the time. I'm an agent talking to my fellow agent. I'm not even an investor talking per se. I don't come at it as an investor, talking to my fellow agent, and they're grumpy at me. So just let it go and keep moving down the road. Maybe come back to that person on another day, give them 2 or 3 strikes. And if they're just not for you, then move on. Right. But this is what's going on out here. I mean, I really feel like I can't stress enough about the elements of creativity and deal making, because why most people are upset, or agents are most upset about this NAR thing and everything. Guys, okay, again, unpopular number 3. It's a laydown. If you have a buyer and you just drive somebody all over town until you finally get your offer accepted, it's kind of a laydown for a paycheck. I'm not saying you aren't working hard, like, schlepping people around, but that doesn't really require out of the box thinking. It's very missionary real estate. And yes, I said that. It's like you just do the thing and you're over it, Whereas you want to get creative and you want to figure out, like, hey, agent, get people on board in your world. Get them enrolled, get them excited, get them involved, because even though the agents can be a pain in the ass, they also have really not even heard of this stuff. And if they're open to it and they want more longevity in this business, they're not halfway out the door, semi-soft retired, then get them in your world. Because at the end of the day, we want to be of service to people. We want to have longevity, and we all want to get paid. And it's not so much lay down real estate anymore. This is what you're going to have to do, earn your keep. So, that was a little bit of a soapbox, but I just get passionate about that because this is what's going on, guys. Don't complain about the industry. Get creative, because people are always going to need help, more or less. I mean, we haven't been replaced by robots yet, and Zillow hasn't killed us yet. And everybody thought Zillow was going to kill the agent, So thanks for letting me go on about that. But I think there's some truth to what I'm sharing, even though it's my opinion, just get out there and get creative.
Absolutely. And before we jump off, I like keeping pretty linear with a story and what's going on. Joelle, I'm seeing your comments. I'm seeing what's going on, and I absolutely understand. So I'm going to kind of very quickly bullet round some responses just for you. And then we'll kind of jump over to some other questions, and you and I can talk. Just DM me. But first and foremost, I'm glad that this was helpful. The aspect of taking someone else's deal to an agent, too messy. And this is an opinion, this is a personal advice, but in that kind of micro flipping or astro flipping model, being the middleman between 2 different agents is going to be incredibly difficult in terms of conversation. If you have an agent contract or you have a contract from somebody else's deal, I highly suggest you do the work to be the own dispo. Use Privy, pop onto Privy and look for buyers in that area, and then skip trace them and move forward that way in terms of how to bring the most value. If you're between 2 wholesalers who actually understand what's going on in the process and are going to cut you in, then I think that that's a little bit different. And that astro flipping method is amazing. Obviously, I could talk about astro flipping all day. But I just want to kind of give you that, like, taking somebody else's deal to an agent, I have only seen it become stickier and messier and all that fun stuff. Do you have any other opinions to that particular one?
I've done it, and it does require some real understanding of what it is. So maybe don't do that straight away. What I would recommend is finding someone like Corey and myself in your market, where if they truly understand it, like if you happen to be in the California market, I'll JV with you all day long and I'll show you and tell you what I'm doing. But it's high level stuff, and the agents don't really understand it. That's why I tell the agent, look, I'll do a referral agreement with you and they can just sidestep it, or I'll JV it with you and they can join. But I don't want them negotiating on my behalf. That's the part where it gets a little messy, because they don't really even know what they're saying. They just want to get paid and have control, but they may have to relinquish a little bit of control to get paid, if that makes sense.
Oh, yeah. 100%. And I think I want to note that those are all different creative methods and ways of doing business. And I think when you experience something like this, like I'm constantly kind of getting stuck, what you're doing is you're turning in a lot of different directions, and you're not committing for 90 days to one method. And I happen to know that if you're connected to the sub 2 community, you have so many options. amazing, fabulous options in every direction. And how wouldn't you be spinning wildly, not being able to decide on what is the one way that I'm going to commit to for 90 days? And Renee and I have talked about this on many different episodes, like the commitment to one thing for 90 days. And Renee, go ahead and give them the spiel about what 90 days really breaks out into.
90 days is not 3 months. Okay. 90 days is 3 working months. Understood. That is how business works. There's 4 quarters. Got it. But if you really look at the average working days, you're not working 30 or 31 days. You might be able to do that, A, if you're young, and B, a couple of times a year, but the human body just can't withstand it. Don't trick yourself. You need downtime. So if, let's say you're working 20, I'm going to use round numbers. Let's say you're working 20 days in a month. So that's 20, 40, 60, 80. That's 4 months right there. Whoops, 4 months right there. And then a week, if you will, or almost 10 days, right? Not even, so that's like 4 months and 2 weeks, almost 4.5 months is really 90 days. So do your own math. You're going to go to an event, you might have a sick day, you need a mental health day, whatever the heck it is. Believe me, like, ask me how I know is my other famous line, because I've been there down those roads. It's about 18 to 20 working days a month within the year. So realistically, stay in your lane and do something for 4 months at a time, and then another 4 months at a time. And then the other, time off, what is that? That's 10 months right there. The other 2 months, no, right? Yeah, 8 months. So the other 4 months of the year is going to be time off. Like I said, sick days. I mean, it's not all jammed together, but I'd say you really have 2 4-month quarters, let's call it. That's not the right word, but quarters in the year. Again, another new concept, but you don't want to get it twisted, because it's not 90 days in 3 months. It's more like 4, almost 5 months. That's a big revelation for people.
Wraps this all back around to our advice is to make sure that you're only sticking to one aspect of how you're going after your deals, and you're sticking to that consistently with reasonable KPIs for 90 days, and true 90 days, not 3 months. So that's kind of the first just advice for honestly any of our listeners. Also, I just want to note that I do coach individually. So if you want to take an hour with just me to sit down and look at your business and where you're spending your time and all of that fun stuff, DM me. I'll send you what my packages are, and we'll get started and kind of move you down the path of the right direction. Cool.
Amazing. All right. Any other questions? No.
Yeah, guys, you're here today. I love this. Honestly, I would like this to happen every week, is that you guys have so many questions that, like, our topic, I get to talk to Renee all the time. Let's talk to you guys about what's going on in your business. So I want to jump over to my gal pal, Tabitha.
Hey, Miss Tabitha.
I've talked about this one a few times, but I would really like to start with your opinion, Renee, especially coming from 18 and a half years with this license in this business, and then approaching a aspect of investment and understanding how wholesalers move. Do you see benefits in that?
Yes, I do. Yes is the answer. Because you have your license, it's just a lot more flexible as far as some of the things that I described in terms of referrals and kind of creatively putting deals together and getting people paid. And if you don't, and you don't want to, because it's going to cost you probably $1,500 a year, loosely, minimum, depending on your MLS and dues and all the things. But it's probably about that. So if that does not appeal to you, and you feel like you're not going to utilize the MLS the way it's designed, you're not taking listings, you're not putting stuff in there, maybe just, gal pal it with one of us or somebody else in your market and just call it a day, because it's going to cost you that amount of money, Plus, I've been so long since I got my license, I don't even know how much it costs to get a license anymore, but it's probably a good $500-600, I would think, at least. So anyway, there's that. And then, yes, it does benefit because it just covers you a bit more. Now, I'm not going to say benefiting me in wholesaling, because remember, I don't consider myself just a wholesaler. I'm an agent who wholesales. So it's more like a verb than a noun. And it does allow me that flexibility, especially because of the way I'm doing it. I'm coordinating with other agents. So I've opened up a whole Pandora's box more for myself, because I'm now doing deals with other agents in this capacity. And it just helps. It helps. So if $2,000, let's call it $1,500, $2,000 a year is doable for you, then go. Yeah. Yes is the answer. Get your license and just have it.
Yeah, and if the funny thing is all the iterations of Corianne and the multiple different businesses that she's had has different opinions on this, but I'll tell you the most recent one, which is that it is incredibly invaluable. And at some point, probably in the next 10-ish years, maybe 15, I think all wholesalers will have to hold a license. So in a lot of ways, I'm like, now or later, you go get one. And for example, when Chicago changed their rules on wholesaling, that was 5 years ago that they changed their rules, and that hasn't yet become all of the other states. So in a lot of ways, I'm like, it could be 10, 15 years, but it's probably coming down in some way, shape, or form. So might as well add that now and get really familiar with how you can move with it. And Renee is the perfect person to talk about this because she enlightens me all the time on different ways that I can approach agents and bring my knowledge to them to better their business. So in a lot of ways, especially Tabitha, because I know your market, I know how you move, I think you would kill it with a license. You're already moving alongside so many agents in such a smart way that I would start moving towards the direction of having that under own time, because here's the ticket. If it slows down your investment business and you're not making money, it's the wrong move. Then you're doing the same thing Joelle's doing in terms of like, where's my money? And we don't want you doing that. We want you to stabilize. So if you're getting enough traction and you're closing 1 to 2 deals, then I would start taking the time to get that license. And that's really individual advice specifically for you because we're buddies.
Yeah. And I know Tabitha as well. She's got a good vibe. And, if you, even to the point of, if you run into somebody, maybe you were door knocking, maybe you're just out like checking out the neighborhood. I know you're in the Northwest and maybe you want to door knock and you happen upon a sweet old woman. And the best option for her is that you actually put it in the MLS. You don't sell it to an investor off market. You put it in the MLS. It will give you that flexibility. And even if you go, oh my God, I'm not even at a brokerage. Maybe you're at a flat fee brokerage and they don't give you a lot of help. You're just going to hang in your shingle there. Get with a local agent that you can also JV with, and they'll assist you in the proper marketing and so forth. So there's just a lot more flexibility. So great question.
Yeah. Really great question. And I'm always happy to talk more about it too. Raja, I hope I'm saying your name correctly. You said you've got a wholesaling question. It is. Drop it in the comments so we can see it. We want to know what it is and bring as much value as we can. Can we take a moment just to say that shift between noun and verb for the word wholesale is so important. And honestly, if you'll just go on a little ramble about that, because my cat is out in the rain, I'll be right back, guys.
My cat's in the rain. Oh, boo. Yeah, I think because of my experience and my time in the business, 18 and a half years. Oh my gosh, it's going to be 19 years in July 2024. I just can't even believe I'm saying that. It's like, where does the time go? I have some authority, to talk about that. So, somebody's got another question. Anyway, yeah, I think, sorry, the questions are coming in hot. Yeah, anyhow, when Corianne gets back, she'll get to them because I don't know how to do that. So wholesaling is when you have, in my opinion, lots of different options, and then you get the opportunity to actually wholesale a property. But maybe you have a buyer who is a small lot developer. Maybe you have somebody who's going to buy and hold. Maybe you've got, somebody who wants land. Wholesaling is literally, you could wholesale a car. It's just an action. You're just taking something that you have under contract that you want to assign it to somebody. That's why we say on there, or assignee. So you want to assign that contract to somebody else that is the actual buyer. But if I call myself just a wholesaler, maybe I'm not licensed. Maybe I'm not thinking out of the box. And there's no shade on just calling yourself a wholesaler, but imagine how much money you're leaving on the table. So if you get in, most of the time when people are wholesaling a wholesale, they want to fix and flip. They want the cheapest, dirtiest house on the block. And if that cheapest, dirtiest house comes down the pike, but it's actually not that, it doesn't pencil out. Maybe it's just a slight modernization. Maybe there needs to be a garage conversion. Maybe it's not even worth fixing and flipping because the property is so stinking old. Maybe it's 100 years old. A lot of the homes in LA are 100 years old. They were built in the 1920s. It's worn out its welcome. It's not even worth fixing and flipping. Maybe it's on a big lot. So now we're going to demo it. So my point is, think outside of the box on how you're running your business and call yourself an investor, whether you have your license or not, call yourself an investor and then decide, can I wholesale that tear down? Can I wholesale the buy and hold? Can I wholesale the fix and flip? Can I wholesale the raw land? And if you still want to call yourself a wholesaler, fine. I say call yourself an investor who wholesales or an agent who wholesales. Because I'm telling you guys, you are leaving money on the table. I just had a conversation with another astro flipping student where it was like the big aha, because in astro flipping, understandably, they've got one lane and they're teaching you to wholesale. Got it. Not throwing shade on that either. But what if it isn't a whole, what if it's something that's not a fix and flip? What if it's another investor opportunity? You've literally taken that and thrown it out the window. You're throwing money away. Please don't do that. So can you ad lib on what I said? It was a little confusing.
Totally.
I get it. People just go wholesaler because they're just trying to grasp what the heck's going on. I'm not here to confuse people, but I definitely want you thinking, even if you're not executing on it, think and then go think about who you can do a deal with. Oh, maybe this is a new build. Let me call Renee because she probably has a new build buyer. I do. That's why I say don't throw it away. That is literally part of my script. I tell other investors not to do that. And I tell other agents not to do that. And I'm telling you, the aha that they get when they're listening to me say that, they're like, oh my God, yes, oh my gosh, I'm calling you. This is why the fire hose has gone off in my world. This is, of course, no brag. I'm just saying what's so. Don't leave money on the table, guys. Transaction engineer. Thank you, brother. I love that.
I mean, this is so important. And I guess what I want to do first in response is talk about the elephant in the room and flick the devil off your shoulder, right? To the newer wholesalers or to the agents that have worked with bad wholesalers, even worse. And they go, how can you represent yourself like that when we also know that one of our main strategies is to assign this contract? One, what Renee is trying to do is dial and shift your possibilities, because even with very little money in your pocket, you can be an ethical, good, smart wholesaler. Now, prefer to take that off and say that you're an investor that is wholesaling. One of the easiest and best ways to make sure that you truly are that, so you can represent yourself as that, or for an agent that wants to check with a wholesaler and see about this, what you want to do is talk to a hard money lender. You need hard money lenders in your back pocket so that you have multiple exit strategies and an understanding of the value you need to complete and close on a deal. Now, does that mean that you can't say, hey, I need to back away from this deal or whatever it might be? No, it doesn't. It's just showing that, hey, you're going the extra mile to make sure that you truly do understand the finances of the thing that you're going under contract on before you ever try to actually sell it. So, yeah, I personally love that shift, that it truly is an exit strategy that is a verb of wholesaling rather than taking it on and saying that I am only that. Because most people that are even entering into real estate from that direction, you don't want to be that all the time. You're looking for ways to enter into real estate to be able to do more. So I don't know, to me, that's putting the elephant away in the closet and kind of like moving on so that we really can make those shifts and start to collaborate openly and ethically and with clear communication to make these things happen.
Woo! Words of affirmation. You're speaking my love language. Words of affirmation. Anyway, yes. Oh, any more questions, concerns?
I want to give a shout out to Richard, who said he just had a closing on a deal. Huge.
That's
congratulations. Amazing. And then I have a little something for Reja. I hope I'm saying your name correctly. What you want to do is find somebody like me or find somebody like Renee in your market. And this is a very market specific moment. So wherever your buyer is interested in potentially picking up, go find somebody that gets deals or is connected to things that you can put in front of those buyers. So I highly suggest you shout out what market you're working in the comments, and we'll connect you to the right people.
That's it. I love that. Let's circle back though, Corinne. Do you have a question? I was going to say deeper relationships with, oh my gosh, is that your kitty?
Yes.
Just
He's
all
hanging
over
out.
the ears. Anyway, yeah, you were going to say something.
I say I can't believe how quickly that hour went when we get to contribute and bring value to our family here. So thank you to everybody that took the time to show up today. It makes it better for everyone, honestly, when we have our community here. And with that, we only have 5 minutes. So quick little tidbit on showing up and making sure that you guys go out there and people in person. It's a closer connection and relationship, and often where the really hard cash buyers to find are hiding. So Renee, can you give us a little something that might be happening in California this week?
Little something. I'm going to do a shameless plug here. So there's a 2-for-1 that I am going to lovingly say I put together. This is the part that you need to be in life and in business proactive. So there is Keegley, which is very quickly Jamil's franchise, Keegley, and they are more of a distribution company. You can work with them. They kind of have specific rules. They're not always as flexible, but they're one option. You can also dispo with me or dispo with Corianna in Colorado. Anyway, SoCal Keegley wants to be more proactive. So they are hosting a meetup this Thursday, the 23rd of May at 5:30 to 8:30 with SoCal JV. SoCal JV is another meetup that they put together, something once a month, actually on the Sunset Boulevard at the Mondrian. Sounds fancy, it kind of is. And every month they do that. So I married the two of them. They wanted me to be the guest speaker. And I said, hey, why don't we put together a panel? That's what's happening. So it's going to be, I am the only astro flipping student. I'm the only agent investor speaking. The rest will be sub 2 because SoCal JV is hosted by a sub 2 student, sub 2 Gator lenders, and so forth. We already have over 130 people that have RSVP'd. I'm bringing 30 people. There's probably going to be another 10. This is just my posse that I've individually text messaged. So this Thursday, May 23rd, 5:30 to 8:30, there will be free tacos, which if you live in SoCal, you know if you know, and drinks. And the parking in Pasadena is very reasonable. It's like $2 an hour or something. And there's a bunch of parking garages right around there in walking distance. Yours truly will be on the panel. Come and give me a hug, meet some other people, find your buy and hold buyers, find your Gator lenders, find your stinking sub 2 people, and just get out of the house. No more pandemic mentality. Let's go.
Absolutely. That stuff's over. Come hug a girl. I'm genuinely jealous, y'all. If you can show up this week and give Renee a hug from me, I would appreciate it, and support her because she's going to be speaking live, and she's obviously, we saw that today, full of good tidbits and tips and things to take away. So go, y'all. Go if you're in California, and bring a notepad. You'll probably need it. And I think with that, I do want to just give a little shout out because you and I met very specifically in the astro flipping family. And yes, I'm so glad that happened. Because you're one of my all-time favorite people. You're my soul sister. So that was pivotal for me and my business. And it very unique. It happened while I was getting my license. It happened while I was listing my first sale of my flip. And there are a lot of different shifts brought me to the astro flipping family. But it was after having a lot of falling on my face moments and not having a community that was there to pick me back up. So I really am a huge believer in astro flipping, and them specifically for teaching wholesaling in an ethical, kind, smart way that includes people like us agents. So if you guys are interested in joining that family, getting access to so many brilliant brains that are floating amongst us, I highly suggest you find me on IG. You can DM me the word astro, or you can just hit me up and let's have a one-on-one convo about what's been going on and why I believe so heavily in this family and community. And with that, I think it's about time we get out of here. We're here every Tuesday.
You know, I just say too, lastly, you know, you are talking about being an astro flipping. It is an investment. And if you hear what the investment is and it doesn't speak to you, or you clutch your pearls because you just don't have the dollars, no one's making anybody do anything. But I will say to you, if you can do it, do it. And then believe in yourself. There's been many times where I've been under a rock and life is life along, and I didn't always believe in myself for certain circumstances. I mean, the best of us, we feel that way, but what you can do is be kind and have grace, talk to some people, talk to some friends, go through what you're going through. And at the end of the day, still know that, you know, really it is up to you. And if you are going to take the investment and really money, you know, and then time, and it calls to you, that you know, I joined Astro at a time where I didn't necessarily have all the money to be spending on this, but I knew that it was the pivotal next step, and it has paid off in spades. So just the bottom line is just remember to believe in yourself. If it is all about the dollars and you're freaking out, maybe let that sit and then just step into it if it still calls to you, because that's just fear speaking. And you will be held. And believe me, in 18 years, I've spent the GNP of a small nation on coaching and everything else, well into the several hundreds of thousands of dollars. So the pittance of what astro flipping is asking for that is just well worth the spend, because some of it was great and some of it wasn't. And so this one was one of the ones that ends up on the it is great. So
before I found astro flipping, I paid like 3 times as much for a bunch of bull poo that didn't actually give me the info that I got in astro. So, you know, I think that is a part of it. Like, make sure you're paying where it's worth it to play. And that is what astro flipping is. And if you're not ready for that, that's why we show up here. We are bringing value from inside of our community, outside of our community, to all y'all. So just make sure you subscribe, and we'll see you back every Tuesday. Renee, thank you.
I love you.
You're my favorite.
You are a sister from another, from one only child to the next. A sister from another.
Yeah, absolutely. And with that, y'all, we will see you next week.
Thanks, guys. Be well. Oh, cutie patootie.